Welcome to our terrifying tale-telling session, where we will share with you 3 bone-chilling horror stories that will make your blood run cold. Story number 1. In the small town of Salem, nestled deep in the woods, there was a coven of witches. They had lived in secrecy for generations, practicing their dark arts and keeping to themselves. But one day, a group of outsiders stumbled upon the coven's secret meeting place deep in the forest. The witches were furious that their sacred space had been violated, and they decided to take revenge on the intruders. The witches began to cast spells, cursing the outsiders with terrible misfortunes. One by one, the outsiders started to suffer from mysterious illnesses and strange accidents. As the days went by, the curses became more and more severe. One man was struck by lightning on a clear day, another woman was plagued by terrifying nightmares that left her exhausted and delirious. But the most gruesome curse was reserved for the ringleader of the outsiders, a man who had shown no respect for the witch's power. They cast a spell that turned him into a grotesque, half-human creature with horns and sharp claws. The man tried to run, but the witches pursued him, hunting him through the woods like a wild animal. They cornered him in a clearing and began to chant, calling upon the spirits of the forest to punish him for his arrogance. Suddenly, the ground beneath the man's feet began to shake. A dark mist rose up from the earth, and the trees around him started to twist and contort. The man screamed in terror as the forest itself seemed to come alive, dragging him down into the ground. His screams echoed through the woods, mixing with the witches' chants and the sound of cracking branches. In the end, nothing was left of the man but a pile of bones, buried deep in the earth. The witches disappeared back into the shadows, their power proven once again. And from that day on, no one ever dared to enter the woods of Salem again. They knew that the witches were still out there, waiting for their next victim to cross their path. Story number 2. It was a dark and stormy night when a group of friends decided to explore an old mansion on the outskirts of town. The mansion had a sinister reputation. It was said that anyone who entered it never returned. But the friends were thrill seekers, and they wanted to see for themselves what was inside. They entered the mansion, and immediately felt an eerie presence. As they walked through the halls, they could hear strange noises, creaking floorboards, whispering voices, and the sound of footsteps coming from empty rooms. But the worst was yet to come. As they entered a room on the 3rd floor, they found a door that seemed to lead to nowhere. It was a small, wooden door with no handle, and it was set into the wall. They pushed the door open, and found themselves in a small, cramped room. The walls were covered in scratches, and there was a strange smell in the air. Suddenly, they heard a voice behind them, a voice that sounded like it came from the depths of hell. They turned around, and saw a figure standing in the doorway. It was a demon. Its skin was black, its eyes glowed red, and its mouth was filled with razor-sharp teeth. The demon spoke in a language they didn't understand, and then vanished into thin air. The friends tried to leave the mansion, but they couldn't find their way out. The mansion seemed to shift and change around them, like a living, breathing entity. And then, one by one, the friends started to disappear. They were dragged away by unseen hands, or swallowed up by the darkness. In the end, only one friend remained. She was trapped in the mansion, alone with the demon. And as she screamed in terror, the mansion swallowed her up too. The mansion was never seen again, and no one knew what had happened to the friends who had dared to enter it. But some say that on dark and stormy nights, you can still hear their screams echoing through the darkness. Story number 3. The small town of Willow Creek was known for its peacefulness and quiet streets. But beneath the surface of this idyllic community lurked a group of sadistic individuals, a secret society that called themselves the Brotherhood. The Brotherhood was made up of the wealthiest and most powerful members of Willow Creek society. They held secret meetings in an old mansion on the outskirts of town, where they indulged in their twisted desires. One night, a young woman named Sarah was kidnapped by the Brotherhood. They took her to their mansion, where she was subjected to unspeakable acts of violence and torture. For weeks, Sarah was kept captive in a basement dungeon, where she was starved, beaten, and raped. The Brotherhood members took turns violating her, laughing as she begged for mercy. But Sarah was a fighter. Despite the horrific abuse, she never gave up hope. She used every ounce of her strength to plan her escape, studying the layout of the mansion and looking for weaknesses in her captors. One night, Sarah saw her chance. She had noticed that one of the Brotherhood members had left his keys on a nearby table, and she managed to grab them when he wasn't looking. She waited until the middle of the night, when the Brotherhood members were asleep, and snuck out of her cell. She made her way through the mansion, using the stolen keys to unlock doors and avoid detection. But just as she was about to make her escape, she was caught by one of the Brotherhood members. He dragged her back to the basement, where the others were waiting. In a fit of rage, the Brotherhood members decided to punish Sarah for trying to escape. They stripped her naked and tied her to a table, where they proceeded to carve symbols into her flesh. They used knives, razors, and other sharp objects to etch their symbols into her skin, laughing as Sarah screamed in agony. They cut off her fingers, her toes, and even her ears. But still, Sarah refused to give up. Even as she lay dying on the table, she managed to escape one last time. With her last breath, she freed herself from her bonds and made a run for the door. But it was too late. The Brotherhood members caught up to her and brutally murdered her, leaving her broken and lifeless body in the basement dungeon. The town of Willow Creek was never the same after that night. The Brotherhood continued their reign of terror, kidnapping and torturing innocent victims. And while some of them were eventually caught and brought to justice, others remained free to continue their horrific crimes. But for Sarah's family and friends, her memory lived on. They never forgot her courage and resilience, and they worked tirelessly to ensure that no one else would suffer the same fate at the hands of the Brotherhood. Well, that concludes our journey into the dark and eerie world of horror stories. I hope you enjoyed our spine-chilling tales and are now thoroughly spooked. If you're feeling brave enough, we invite you to share your own scary stories in the comment section below. Who knows, maybe your story will be the next one we share. And if you're craving more scares, be sure to check out the horror section of your local bookstore or library. You never know what terrors lie within the pages of a good horror novel. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the unknown. Until next time, remember to keep the lights on and stay safe. Good night.